Captain Ethan Ward stepped off the shuttle onto the smooth silver landing platform. The air of Zithera shimmered softly in the twin suns' light, and he could feel the subtle hum of energy beneath his boots. Humans had never been here before, at least not officially, and the weight of his responsibility pressed on him. He straightened his armor, though it felt heavier than ever under the alien sun. The palace of Zithera loomed ahead, towering in smooth curves of polished metal and crystal that reflected the light like flowing water. Ships and vehicles moved, gracefully in the sky, guided by invisible lanes of energy. Ethan felt a mix of awe and nervousness. He had trained for diplomacy as much as for combat, but this world was unlike anything he had imagined. Captain Ward, a soft, musical voice, called. Ethan turned to see an alien aide approaching. She had tall, graceful posture, translucent skin that glowed faintly under the sun, and eyes that shifted in color like liquid gemstones. "Welcome to Zethera. I am Navara, your guide." Ethan gave a careful nod. "Thank you. I'm honored to be here." The aide smiled faintly. "Follow me. The princess awaits." Ethan's stomach tightened. Princess Lyria. He had seen her image in the briefing files, a 19-year-old Zitheran with radiant skin, long flowing hair that shimmered like silver threads, and eyes that seemed to sparkle with mischief. According to the files, she was intelligent, playful, and unafraid to challenge protocol. Ethan's mind ran through his usual scenarios: formal greetings, handshakes, careful words. Yet something told him this encounter would not go as planned. As he entered the palace, the walls seemed to pulse with life. Strange plants climbed along, transparent walkways, glowing softly in the light. Hovering lights floated without support, illuminating the corridor in shifting colors. The human soldier felt his usual composure strain under the beauty and unfamiliarity, and then he saw her. Princess. Lyria was waiting in the central chamber, a large open hall where light and shadows danced across the polished floor. She leaned casually against a column, arms crossed, one eyebrow raised, a small, teasing smile on her lips. She looked younger than her title suggested, almost playful, yet her presence filled the room with authority. Ethan cleared his throat. "Princess Lyria, it is an honor." She tilted her head, studying him like a cat watching a mouse. "Captain Ward," she said, her voice melodic. "So you are the human who thinks he can handle Zithera." Ethan straightened. "I am here to learn and to represent humanity. I hope I can do both respectfully." Lyria's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Respectfully?" she repeated, as if tasting the word. "That is a good start. But I doubt you will survive a full day in Zitheran society without tripping over your own customs." Ethan blinked. She was teasing him already. He had expected formality, not mockery, yet her tone was not harsh. It was playful, challenging, almost inviting him to rise to the occasion. "I am ready for any challenge," he said carefully, trying to hide a small smile. "Good," she replied, stepping forward. She circled him slowly, observing the armor he wore. "And what is this?" she asked, gesturing to his chest plate and shoulder guards. "A human fashion statement? Or a method of intimidation?" Ethan's hands tensed on his sides. "It is standard military issue," he said. "It protects me and signals my role." Lyria's laugh was soft, like wind over water. "It looks heavy. You must be very serious, Captain. Perhaps too serious." Ethan found himself momentarily speechless. Most beings he had encountered responded to authority or gestures of strength. Here the princess mocked his appearance. And yet, he felt no anger. Instead, he felt intrigued. "Would you like to see something lighter?" she asked suddenly, pointing to a series of floating platforms outside the hall. "A proper introduction to Zithera?" Ethan followed. Each step he took on the floating platforms felt strange, the gravity slightly weaker than on Earth. Lyria moved with grace, skipping lightly from platform to platform, as if she had no weight at all. Ethan struggled to keep up, his armor clanking softly with each movement. She laughed again, clearly enjoying his awkwardness. "Oh, Captain, humans are too stiff. Watch and learn." She performed a simple, elegant movement, almost like dancing, and Ethan realized how unpracticed he was in even basic agility outside the weight of his armor. He tried to mirror her movement, but his foot slipped slightly. Lyria caught his arm with gentle strength. "Careful. Humans are fragile creatures, are they not?" she teased. "I am durable enough," Ethan replied, keeping his balance. "You are durable," she agreed, "but also so serious. Must everything you do be precise? Where is your sense of fun?" Ethan considered this. On Earth, fun often involved controlled activities, games, sports, carefully monitored adventures. Zithra seemed to redefine the concept entirely. "I'm willing to try," he said slowly. Her eyes gleamed. "Good. Then remove that armor. Let us see the human beneath the shell." Ethan froze. Removing his armor was unthinkable in a formal setting, yet her gaze was not demanding, only playful, expectant. He took a deep breath, feeling the strange mix of discomfort and curiosity. Slowly, carefully, he unfastened his chest plate and shoulder guards, then set them aside. The princess's eyes widened, not in mockery but in genuine surprise. "Interesting," she murmured. "Not as fragile as I expected. And you move better without the weight. Perhaps there is hope for your kind." Ethan nodded, adjusting to the freedom of movement. "Thank you for the suggestion." "Suggestion?" she echoed, stepping closer. "I called it a challenge." She smiled, circling him once more. "I like humans. They are too rigid, but they surprise me. Perhaps you will do more than surprise." Ethan felt a flicker of pride. He had not only survived her teasing but had taken her challenge seriously, yet he also realized that he was entering a world full of tests he did not fully understand, and every step forward would require both courage and adaptability. As the twin suns of Zithra began to set, the palace glowed in soft hues of violet and gold. Lyria led him to a balcony overlooking the city. Ships glided like fish in the sky, and the hum of energy vibrated through the air. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will meet the council and partake in our festival of lights. It will test your skills in observation, creativity, and social grace. Are you ready?" Ethan nodded, though his mind raced. "I will do my best." Lyria tilted her head, studying him. "Humans often say they will do their best. We shall see if it is enough for Zithra." Her smile was both teasing and approving. As night fell and the city's lights sparkled like stars beneath the palace balcony, Ethan felt a strange excitement. This world was unfamiliar, full of challenges, yet it invited him to grow, to learn, and perhaps to impress a princess who delighted in teasing him. The morning light filtered softly through the palace windows, casting a warm glow over the polished floors. Captain Ethan Ward stood in the palace courtyard, his armor carefully stored away the previous night. The air was crisp with a gentle breeze, carrying the faint hum of Zithran energy. He adjusted his uniform, still stiff and unfamiliar, as Princess Lyria approached with her usual air of playful authority. "Good morning, Captain," she said, her voice tinged with amusement. "I trust you slept well under our human accommodations." Ethan gave a small nod. "Adequately," he replied. "Your palace is impressive." Lyria tilted her head, examining him. "Adequate praise, but I expected more enthusiasm. Humans always exaggerate their emotions, do they not?" Ethan hesitated. He wanted to respond with formality, but something about her teasing made him want to reply differently. "I am adjusting," he said. "Adjusting?" she repeated, a faint smile dancing on her lips. "That is a human word for struggling." He raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps." She laughed lightly, a sound like wind chimes. "Come, Captain. The palace awaits exploration. I will not allow you to linger in your stiff human ways any longer." Together they walked through the corridors of the palace. The walls shimmered with a living light, changing hues as they moved. Strange flowering plants grew along the edges, their petals floating just above the ground as if weightless. Ethan marveled silently at the beauty, careful not to stumble on the moving platforms that connected different levels of the hall. Lyria noticed his careful steps. "You are too cautious," she teased. "Humans are always afraid of falling or making mistakes. Look at me." She stepped lightly onto one of the floating platforms, her feet barely touching it before it rose gently into the air. She twirled effortlessly, her long hair glinting in the light. Ethan followed, trying to mimic her movements, but his larger frame and heavier feet caused the platform to sway slightly. "Careful, Captain," Lyria said, pretending to scold him. Though her eyes twinkled, "I almost thought you might break our delicate Zitharan technology." Ethan straightened, regaining balance. "I assure you, I am sturdy enough," he said, though a small smile betrayed his enjoyment. Lyria's gaze softened for a moment. "Perhaps you are, Captain. Humans may surprise me yet." They reached a wide balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly in the morning light, and streams of liquid energy flowed like rivers between the terraces. Exotic creatures floated in the air, some glowing, some translucent, moving with an elegance Ethan had never seen. "Look carefully, Captain," Lyria said. "Zithara is full of surprises, but only those who observe truly understand it." Ethan crouched slightly, examining a plant that shimmered in shades of blue and violet. He noticed how its leaves turned toward him as he moved closer, sensing motion. He scribbled quick notes in a small holographic pad he carried. "You humans are always so serious," Lyria said, tilting her head. "You write everything down, analyze everything. You forget to enjoy the moment." Ethan paused. "Observing is part of understanding," he said. "And understanding is fine." Lyria replied, stepping closer. "But what about experiencing?" Before he could answer, she gestured to a small fountain nearby. Water-like energy rose in twisting streams, forming shapes that hovered in the air. "Dance with it," she commanded. Ethan frowned. "Dance?" "Yes, dance," Lyria said, laughing at his confusion. "Humans are so rigid. I wish to see you move without rules, without armor, without your usual seriousness." He hesitated, but something in her gaze, challenging yet inviting, pushed him forward. Slowly, carefully, he lifted a foot, then another, attempting to mirror the flowing movements of the energy streams. He stumbled slightly, but the challenge pushed him to adapt, to think differently. Lyria clapped her hands softly. "Better. Not perfect, but there is potential. Humans can learn, if they are willing." Ethan took a deep breath, focusing on the rhythm of the energy. He felt his body loosening, his mind quieting. For the first time in years, he moved not out of duty, but out of curiosity. The armor he had carried, the rules he had followed, everything felt distant. "You see, Captain?" Lyria said softly, stepping closer. "Life is not only about duty or survival. Sometimes it is about joy." Ethan nodded, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. "I understand," he said quietly. Lyria smiled. "Good, but remember, understanding is only the beginning. You must also adapt." The palace gardens opened into a wide terrace filled with other Zitharans, some watching them with curious eyes. Lyria bowed slightly, introducing him. "This is Captain Ethan Ward of Earth," she said. "He is learning the ways of Zithara. Observe him. Humans are unusual." The Zitharans murmured among themselves, intrigued by the human's presence. Ethan straightened, nodding politely, showing both respect and calm confidence. He felt a quiet pride. He might be far from home, surrounded by beings who could easily overwhelm him, but he had not faltered. "See?" Lyria whispered as they moved to a quieter corner. "Humans have charm. You have it, Captain. Even in armor, even in stiffness, you carry something unique." Ethan blinked. He had never heard praise like this from anyone, let alone a princess who teased him relentlessly. "Thank you," he said simply. "You are welcome," she replied, tilting her head. "But charm alone will not suffice. You must also be clever, adaptable, and occasionally bold." Ethan frowned slightly. Bold? Yes, Lyria said, eyes sparkling. Bold. You see, humans often hide behind rules and armor. Sometimes you must remove both to reveal your true strength. Ethan's mind wandered back to the previous day, to the moment he had removed his armor at her suggestion. That simple act had surprised her, and he realized it had been more than a challenge. It had been a small test of trust. And are humans usually willing to remove their armor? She asked playfully. Not always, Ethan replied. But sometimes, it is necessary. Lyria laughed softly, the sound blending with the gentle hum of the palace gardens. Good answer. You may yet teach me something about your kind. As the morning stretched into afternoon, Lyria guided him through the palace. They visited the Hall of Knowledge, where holographic displays floated in mid-air, showing Zithara's history, art, and science. Ethan absorbed everything quickly, making careful notes and asking precise questions. Lyria watched him with interest. You humans are persistent, she said, and yet, you are still too serious. Observe. With a flick of her hand, she activated a display that projected a scene from Zitharan life, a festival with colorful lights, floating instruments, and dancing figures. The scene shifted continuously, impossible to fully follow. Try to mimic it, she challenged. Ethan studied the motions carefully. Though it seemed chaotic, his mind worked quickly, noting patterns and sequences. Slowly he began to move, copying the gestures, adjusting as the display changed. Lyria's eyes widened in surprise. Not bad, Captain, she said, clapping lightly. You adapt faster than I expected. Perhaps humans are more flexible than they appear. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Flexibility can be learned, he said simply. Indeed, Lyria replied, stepping closer. And charm can be learned too, but you have that naturally. Most humans do not. Ethan felt his cheeks warm slightly. He had expected teasing, perhaps even mild embarrassment, but her praise felt genuine, almost personal. The day continued with Lyria showing him more of Zithara, floating gardens, energy, rivers, and creatures that seemed to exist between light and matter. Everywhere they went, she teased him, about his human habits, his careful steps, even the way he blinked when surprised. And everywhere, he adapted, learned, and occasionally surprised her. By late afternoon, they returned to the palace balcony, overlooking the city. The twin suns had lowered, casting long shadows across the landscape. Ships moved gracefully through the sky, and the city glowed softly in anticipation of night. You have done well today, Captain, Lyria said softly. You are not perfect, but you are impressive. Humans often underestimate themselves. Ethan nodded, watching the city below. I have learned much today, he said. Thanks to you. Perhaps tomorrow, Lyria said, her eyes sparkling. You will teach me something too. Ethan's heart skipped slightly. He had no idea what she meant, but he felt the challenge keenly. It was not about strength or skill, it was about understanding, trust, and the subtle art of connection. As night fell over Zithara, Ethan realized that the princess's teasing had become something more than entertainment. It had become a test, a lesson, and an invitation, and he was ready to accept it. The morning of the Festival of Lights arrived with a gentle glow over Zithara. The city shimmered in soft violet and gold, the streets alive with floating lanterns and streams of energy flowing like rivers in the sky. Captain Ethan Ward stepped onto the palace balcony, taking in the spectacle. Even for a human who had seen the wonders of other planets, this festival was unlike anything he had imagined. Princess Lyria was already there, her long hair catching the light, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Good morning, Captain, she said, smiling as she surveyed him. Today humans will show their true colors. Are you ready? I am, Ethan replied, straightening his posture. Though he had removed his armor for the previous day's challenges, he now wore a lighter uniform, giving him freedom of movement but still formal enough for the occasion. Good, Lyria said, stepping off the balcony onto the floating platforms that would carry them down into the city. Observe, adapt, and participate. That is the human way, is it not? Ethan nodded. Yes. Observe, adapt, participate. He followed her carefully, though the platforms swayed slightly under his weight. The streets below were filled with zitherans in flowing robes, floating lanterns, and hovering instruments that played soft melodic tunes. Energy ribbons wove through the air, forming complex patterns that shimmered and shifted continuously. Children played with glowing orbs that floated around them like tiny stars. The festival was a celebration of life, creativity, and skill, and it would test Ethan in ways he had not expected. First lesson, Lyria said, pointing to a group of zitherans performing a dance that seemed to defy gravity. Join them. Humans are often clumsy, but let us see if your species can keep up. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. The dancers moved with a fluidity he had never known, spinning and leaping through the air as if the rules of gravity were suggestions rather than laws. He mirrored their movements cautiously, using his observation skills to anticipate the flow of the dance. He stumbled once or twice, but the crowd did not mock him. Instead, they adjusted their motions subtly, helping him maintain balance. Lyria watched, a smile on her face. Better than I expected, Captain, she said. Your species learns quickly when it matters. Keep going. By the time the dance ended, Ethan was breathing heavily, but he felt a thrill unlike any other. He had adapted, survived, and even impressed. Not with strength, but with his focus, determination, and willingness to try. Lyria clapped her hands softly. Impressive human. You have more grace than I expected. Perhaps your kind is not as rigid as I thought. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, Princess. I am learning from you as well. Good, she replied, linking her arm with his. The festival is not only about dancing. Observe the environment, Captain. Zithra is alive in ways humans rarely experience. Notice the lights, the ribbons, the sounds. They all carry meaning. Ethan's eyes scanned the surroundings. He noticed subtle patterns in the energy ribbons, variations in color that indicated different emotions, even shifts in the floating lanterns that mirrored the moods of the crowd. He took mental notes, his human mind organizing chaos into patterns, a skill he had honed through training and experience. Excellent observation, Lyria said, her voice quiet but approving. Most humans would miss all that, and focus only on the obvious. You notice details. He nodded. It is how we survive. Observation is key. Lyria smiled wider. And how you excel. Humans are underestimated far too often. Their walk continued through the festival. Vendors offered glowing fruits that floated in midair. Performers balanced on streams of energy, and musicians played instruments that produced colors as well as sound. Lyria stopped at a stall where floating cubes shifted shapes and colors, a test of intelligence and creativity. Try this, Captain, she said, handing him a cube. Humans are clever. Let us see if you can solve it. Ethan studied the cube carefully. Each face changed color depending on how it was moved, and touching one side affected another. He realized it was not just a puzzle. It was a lesson in cause and effect, observation and patience. Slowly, methodically, he manipulated the cube, noticing patterns and predicting outcomes. Within minutes, the cube shifted into a perfect glowing shape, stabilizing in midair. Lyria's eyes widened. Well done, she said, clapping softly. Humans are clever indeed. I underestimated your species. Ethan inclined his head. It is not just me. My species adapts and learns when needed. She laughed, a soft melodic sound. Yes, and yet you are charming too. Humans have both intelligence and something more. Curiosity, perhaps? I would say curiosity is essential, Ethan replied. It drives understanding and growth. Then you are a fine example, she said, looking at him with genuine admiration. The afternoon sun began to dip and the festival shifted to evening mode. Lanterns floated higher into the sky, casting a soft glow over the city. Streams of energy formed intricate patterns above, moving like living brushstrokes. Musicians played gentle tunes, and the crowd moved in harmonious waves. Lyria led Ethan to a high terrace overlooking the city. "Now," she said, "you will participate in a more difficult challenge. Observe the energy ribbons above. They carry meaning. Some show joy, some fear, some curiosity. You must interpret them and respond appropriately." Ethan nodded, focusing intently. He noticed a sequence of ribbons flowing in blue and gold, then shifting to violet. Each change corresponded with the crowd's reaction. Smiles, laughter, whispers of awe. Using the movements of his body and subtle gestures, he mirrored the energy, blending his actions with the festival's flow. Lyria watched closely. "Remarkable," she whispered. "Most humans would be overwhelmed, yet you adapt. You are impressive." Ethan allowed himself a small smile, feeling pride, but also a deep sense of connection. He was no longer an outsider merely observing. He was participating fully, using human ingenuity, observation, and adaptability to blend with an alien culture. The final event of the festival approached, a synchronized display of floating lanterns, rising into the night sky. Each participant released a lantern, guiding it through the energy currents to form a magnificent pattern above the city. Lyria handed Ethan a lantern, its surface glowing softly. "Release it when ready," she said. "Think carefully about its path. Humans are capable of precise action. Show me what you can do." Ethan studied the currents, calculating the flow, anticipating the movements of the surrounding lanterns. He adjusted his position slightly, then let the lantern rise. It followed the path he intended, weaving through the ribbons of light and forming a small, intricate pattern. Lyria's eyes lit up. "Impressive," she said, laughing softly. "Humans can adapt to anything, if they have the patience and courage." The city erupted in applause, not for Ethan alone, but for the collective beauty of the festival. Yet, Lyria's gaze remained on him, full of amusement and admiration. "You have done well today, Captain," she said. "You not only survived, but thrived. You blend intelligence, observation, and courage. Most humans could not do what you have done." Ethan bowed slightly, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Thank you, Princess. I learned from the best teacher." Lyria smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Perhaps, Captain, you will teach me something about humans, too." As the festival ended and the lanterns floated higher into the starry sky, Ethan felt a profound sense of achievement. He had entered an alien world, full of beauty, challenges, and unfamiliar customs, and he had thrived. He had shown that humans could adapt, observe, and contribute meaningfully, even in environments that seemed impossible. Lyria stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. "Tomorrow there will be another challenge," she said softly. "One that will test more than your skill or intelligence. It will test your understanding of Zithara, and perhaps your courage in ways you cannot yet imagine." Ethan nodded, his mind already turning toward the next day's trials. He had learned that survival and success were not just about strength. They were about curiosity, observation, adaptability, and the willingness to engage fully with the unknown. Lyria's playful gaze lingered on him. "Humans are strange creatures," she said with a soft laugh. "But I like them, especially you, Captain." Ethan allowed himself a small smile, feeling both pride and anticipation. He had come to Zithara as a soldier, representing humanity in a diplomatic mission, but he realized now that his role was more than that. Humans had the power to inspire, adapt, and even charm, even in a world as alien and beautiful as this. As night settled over the city, Ethan and Lyria stood side by side, watching the floating lanterns drift into the heavens. The festival had tested him, challenged him, and allowed him to shine in a way he had never imagined. And in that moment, he understood the quiet truth of Zithara. Strength was not measured only by force, but by intelligence, adaptability, and the courage to step into the unknown. The morning air on Zithara shimmered with a soft golden glow, signaling the start of a day unlike any Ethan Ward had faced so far. The Festival of Lights had ended, leaving a lingering glow in the city, and in the hearts of its citizens. But for Ethan, the festival was only the beginning. Today, Princess Lyria had promised a challenge, a test that would go beyond dancing, puzzles, or observation. He waited in the palace courtyard, his light uniform adjusted for freedom of movement. Lyria arrived as usual with a mischievous smile and eyes that sparkled with anticipation. "Good morning, Captain," she said. "Are you prepared to show not only your skill but your understanding of Zythera?" "I am ready," Ethan replied, steadying his nerves. Lyria's smile widened. "Good. Today the Council has prepared a test for you. It is not physical nor violent. It is a test of perception, intellect, and courage. You must navigate the labyrinth of reflections." Ethan frowned slightly. "Labyrinth of reflections?" "Yes," she said, gesturing toward a large, glass-like structure rising at the edge of the palace gardens. "It is an ancient Zytheran creation. Within, reality is fluid. Paths shift, illusions appear, and only those who observe carefully can find the way through. Many visitors fail, mostly because they panic or underestimate the challenge." Ethan studied the labyrinth. Its walls shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting distorted images of himself and the surroundings. He felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. Humans thrived on challenges, especially those that required observation, reasoning, and adaptability. "Remember," Lyria added, "your goal is not only to reach the center, but also to understand what the labyrinth teaches about Zythera. Every reflection carries meaning." He nodded, determined. "I will do my best." Lyria's gaze softened, but her teasing tone returned. "I hope your best is better than your dancing yesterday. Humans can surprise me, but I expect more than mere balance this time." With that, she stepped aside and motioned him forward. Ethan took a deep breath and entered the labyrinth. Inside, the world seemed to shift constantly. Walls rippled like liquid, reflecting impossible angles. Ethan saw multiple versions of himself, some taller, some shorter, some moving in directions he was not. He realized quickly that the labyrinth was designed to confuse the mind, to make one question perception. He paused, observing the reflections. Some mirrored his exact movements, while others seemed to act independently. Ethan realized that patience and careful attention would be key. He moved slowly, testing each path, noting subtle differences in reflections, and adjusting accordingly. Corridor stretched before him, branching in 3 directions. 2 paths showed mirror images of the same corridor, while the third had subtle differences. A slight shift in the reflection of a glowing plant, a shadow that moved differently. Ethan focused on these discrepancies, trusting his observation. He chose the third path. As he walked, reflections morphed into shapes that resembled Zytheran citizens, some observing him silently. He paused. Realizing the illusions were not merely decorative, they tested his reactions. He continued carefully, maintaining calm, moving with awareness rather than haste. Suddenly, he reached a large chamber filled with floating orbs of light. Each orb contained a reflection of Zytheran history, glimpses of past rulers, festivals, and ceremonies. One orb showed Princess Lyria herself, smiling mischievously at him from within. "This is a test of understanding, Captain," a soft voice echoed Lyria's, though she was not physically present. "See beyond appearances. Learn from what you observe. Humans often focus on the obvious and miss the lesson." Ethan studied the orbs carefully. They were more than images. They were lessons. The patterns of movement, the interactions, the subtle details, all carried meaning about Zytheran culture. He took careful notes mentally, recognizing that the labyrinth tested both intellect and patience. A sudden shift caused the chamber to tilt slightly, disorienting him. One of the orbs moved closer, reflecting a distorted version of himself. Ethan steadied himself, remembering Lyria's words about courage. Panic would make him fail. Instead, he focused, trusting his observation and reasoning. He followed the subtle patterns among the orbs, stepping in precise rhythms to avoid triggering traps, gentle shifts in the floor and walls, Gradually, the reflections began to align, forming a clear path toward the center. At the heart of the labyrinth, a raised platform awaited, bathed in soft, golden light. In the center stood a crystal pedestal, glowing faintly. Upon it rested a small intricate device resembling a puzzle box. "This is your final task," Lyria's voice echoed again. "The box will test your logic and insight. Open it, and you will succeed. Not by force, but by understanding." Ethan approached the pedestal carefully. The device had several interlocking pieces, each glowing with subtle energy. He observed the patterns, recognizing symmetry and flow. Unlike other humans, he realized, Zitherans appreciated harmony and complexity, a balance between thought and perception. He began manipulating the pieces slowly, testing how each movement affected the others. Unlike brute force, this required patience and reasoning. Minutes passed, then tens of minutes, yet he did not falter. Each adjustment brought him closer to solving the puzzle. Finally, with a gentle twist of the last piece, the device clicked softly. Light spread from the puzzle, illuminating the entire chamber in a warm, golden glow. Ethan stepped back, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had not only navigated the labyrinth, but also understood its lesson. Observation, patience, and courage were as valuable as strength. The walls of the labyrinth shimmered and dissolved, revealing Princess Lyria standing nearby, her expression a mixture of amusement and admiration. "Impressive, Captain," she said softly. "You did not merely survive, you thrived. Humans often rely on strength, yet you have shown that intelligence, patience, and observation are just as powerful." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Princess. The labyrinth taught me much about Zithra and about adaptability." Lyria stepped closer, her playful tone returning. "You are remarkable, Captain. Most humans would have panicked or relied solely on brute force, but you think and act with precision. I am impressed." Ethan felt a surge of quiet pride. For the first time, he sensed that humans could truly shine in an alien world, not by dominating it, but by understanding it. "Now," Lyria said, linking her arm with his, "let us leave this place. There is more to learn and more to see. The council will wish to speak with you, but for now, walk with me. Observe freely. You have earned it." They strolled through the palace gardens, now familiar to Ethan, though still full of wonder. Lyria pointed out subtle details he had previously missed: a plant that changed color according to mood, a stream of energy that responded to footsteps, a flower that hovered midair and followed his gaze. "See, Captain," Lyria said softly. "Zithra rewards attention, curiosity, and care. Humans who observe well can thrive even in a world far from home." "I understand," Ethan replied. "Humans can adapt to almost any environment if they pay attention and think carefully." She smiled. "Exactly. And you have proven this, today, in ways few visitors ever do." As they walked, Lyria teased him lightly, recalling moments from the festival and the labyrinth. "You moved with more grace than I expected yesterday. Perhaps dancing is not beyond humans after all." Ethan smiled quietly. "I learned from the best teacher." She laughed softly. "Flattery suits you, Captain. But remember, humans must also be bold. Observation alone is not enough. Sometimes you must act without hesitation." Ethan nodded. He had faced many challenges in his life, but Zithra tested not only skill and intellect but also patience, courage, and subtlety. He realized that humans had unique strengths, adaptability, reasoning, and ingenuity, that could shine even in a world so alien. As the sun set over Zithra, casting a warm golden glow across the palace, Ethan and Lyria stood together on the Hao terrace. The city below shimmered with light and the quiet hum of energy filled the air. "You have done well, Captain," Lyria said softly. "Humans often underestimate themselves. Today you have shown that your kind is capable of far more than most expect." Ethan felt a quiet pride. "Thank you, Princess. I have learned much today, not only about Zithera but also about the human capacity to adapt and thrive. Lyria's eyes sparkled with admiration and amusement. You are remarkable, Captain, and I look forward to seeing what humans will teach me next. For the first time, Ethan realized that his journey on Zithera was not only a mission of diplomacy, it was a journey of mutual discovery. Humans could impress, adapt, and thrive, even in worlds beyond their own. And in doing so, they could forge connections that transcended species, culture, and expectation. The night deepened, and Zithera glowed softly under twin moons. Ethan felt a sense of quiet fulfillment. The challenges had been difficult, yet they revealed the true strength of humanity, the ability to observe, adapt, think, and act with courage. The morning air of Zithera was crisp and soft, carrying the faint hum of energy that vibrated throughout the palace gardens. Captain Ethan Ward stood at the edge of the landing platform, his light uniform adjusted neatly, his armor set aside in the palace armory. Today was the day he would depart for Earth, and yet a strange mixture of satisfaction and melancholy filled him. Princess Lyria appeared at his side, her usual playful smile softening into something warmer. So, Captain, she said, her voice melodic. Today you leave Zithera. Do humans always leave so quietly? Ethan shook his head slightly. Not always, but I wish to leave with respect, not fanfare. Lyria studied him, her luminous eyes glimmering with mischief. Respect, That may be human, but it is also boring. I hoped for a bit more flair. Ethan allowed a small smile. Flair can be overrated. Actions often speak louder than words. Lyria tilted her head, laughing softly. You humans are strange creatures. You speak in riddles, and yet I find them fascinating. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I hope, Captain, that your time here has been more than duty and observation. I hope you have seen the beauty of Zithera, and perhaps the uniqueness of its people. I have, Ethan replied sincerely. And I have learned that humans can adapt, even in worlds far from their own. We can observe, think, and act, with patience and courage. Today I see that these traits are valued here, even among beings as extraordinary as Zitherans. Lyria smiled, a mixture of pride and playful amusement. And yet, I also hope you have learned to smile and dance a little, Captain. Humans often forget joy in the midst of duty. Ethan nodded, recalling the Festival of Lights, the labyrinth, and all the subtle lessons she had taught him. I have learned to enjoy the moment, Princess, and I will carry these memories with me. She leaned closer, her gaze studying him intently. You know, Captain, most humans would have failed the labyrinth. Most would have panicked or relied only on strength, but you observe, adapt, and think. That is a rare quality, even among visitors from other worlds. I did what was necessary, Ethan said simply. Humans are capable of much when the challenge is worthy. Lyria laughed softly, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. Yes, worthy indeed. Perhaps that is why I find you intriguing. You are unlike others, quiet, thoughtful, clever, and yet willing to embrace the unknown. Ethan felt a subtle warmth. He had never experienced praise quite like this, and from a princess who teased him relentlessly, it felt even more meaningful. Thank you, Princess, he said quietly. She smiled. You are welcome. But enough words. Humans can say much, but often they must show more. Ethan glanced down at his uniform, the insignia of his mission visible on his chest. Slowly, deliberately, he began to remove it. One piece at a time, he set it aside. His actions were quiet, unassuming, yet deliberate, a gesture that spoke of respect, humility, and trust. Lyria watched intently, her eyes widening slightly. Interesting, she whispered. You do not need words. Actions. They speak louder than rhetoric, do they not? Ethan nodded. Sometimes they are the truest form of communication. The hum of the landing platform beneath them grew louder as the shuttle awaited him. Lyria gestured toward it, her usual playful tone returning. "Shall we?" He followed, moving carefully yet with the confidence he had gained over the past days. Every step felt lighter, freer, no longer burdened by armor or hesitation, but carrying the knowledge that humans could thrive even in the most alien circumstances. The shuttle's ramp lowered, and Ethan stepped inside. He turned briefly to see Lyria standing at the edge of the platform, her playful smile softened into something more reflective, almost wistful. "You have done well, Captain," she said softly. "Humans often underestimate themselves, yet you have proven that your species can adapt, thrive, and even shine among us." Ethan inclined his head. "I have learned much here, Princess, and I will carry these lessons forward, not only for myself, but for humanity." She nodded, stepping back slightly. "Then go, Captain. But remember, Zithra will always be a place where humans can surprise, impress, and perhaps even charm." He allowed himself one last look at her, her figure framed by the twin suns, rising over the city. He could see the playful curiosity in her eyes, the admiration mixed with amusement, and he felt a quiet pride. Humans, he realized, could leave a mark not through domination, but through intelligence, adaptability, and the courage to engage fully with the unknown. As the shuttle lifted off, Ethan watched Zithra grow smaller beneath him. The floating gardens, the glowing streams, the dancing lights of the Festival of Lights, all of it had left an impression not only on him, but also on those who had observed him. He had proven that humans could thrive in a world designed to challenge perception, intellect, and patience. Lyria appeared on the balcony one last time, her figure glowing softly in the morning light. She waved, teasing, playful, yet her eyes reflected genuine admiration. "Farewell, Captain, and remember, humans can adapt in ways even we Zithrans do not expect." Ethan waved back, a small smile on his lips. "Farewell, Princess. Thank you. For everything." The shuttle glided, through the air, rising higher and higher, leaving the palace and its dazzling cityscape behind. Ethan sat back, reflecting on the past days. He had entered Zithra as a soldier, tasked with representing humanity in diplomacy. But he was leaving as more than that. He had navigated the labyrinth, embraced alien culture, and demonstrated human adaptability, intelligence, and subtle courage. He realized something important. Humans did not always need weapons or strength to succeed. Observation, patience, reasoning, and the willingness to embrace the unknown were just as powerful. And in a world as alien and beautiful as Zithra, these traits had allowed him to shine. As the planet's twin suns faded from view, Ethan thought of Princess Lyria. She had teased him, challenged him, and pushed him to reveal his true potential, not as a soldier, but as a human capable of learning, adapting, and connecting. He smiled quietly. Humans could make an impression even in worlds far from their own, not by force, but by showing who they truly were. Back on the palace balcony, Lyria lingered a moment longer, watching the shuttle disappear into the sky. Her playful smile returned, but there was a subtle glow of satisfaction. She had witnessed something rare, a human who could navigate not only the challenges of Zithra, but also the subtleties of trust, intelligence, and adaptability. "You are unusual, Captain," she murmured to herself. "Perhaps humans are worth more attention than I realized." The shuttle passed through Zithran atmosphere, and Ethan felt the hum of the engines beneath him. He leaned back, eyes closed briefly, savoring the lessons, the experiences, and the memories. Zithra was unlike any world he had seen, and yet humans had thrived here, not through domination but through observation, reasoning, and courage. He opened his eyes, looking at the stars through the shuttle's viewport. Somewhere out there, Princess Lyria watched, curious and amused, and he felt a quiet connection that transcended worlds. As Earth's orbit grew closer on the shuttle's navigation system, Ethan prepared for the return journey. Yet he carried more than coordinates or mission details. He carried the proof that humans could shine anywhere, adapt to any challenge, and make a difference through intellect, patience, and courage. And somewhere on Zithera, a young princess smiled, remembering the human soldier who had removed his armor without a word, navigated their world with grace and left a lasting impression. She would not forget him, or the lesson that humans were far more remarkable than they appeared. The shuttle glided into the silence of space, carrying Captain Ethan Ward home, a human who had proven that even in the most alien of worlds, humanity could thrive, adapt, and leave a mark. And in that quiet, suspended moment between planets, one truth became clear. Humans did not need weapons or dominance to shine. They only needed courage, intelligence, curiosity, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. The story of the human soldier and the 19-year-old alien princess had reached its conclusion, yet its impact lingered. Proof that even across worlds, species, and cultures, humanity could be remarkable, resilient, and endlessly fascinating.